weekend in the NFL. A very wild weekend indeed. Some very, very interesting games, Jay. You had the Buffalo Bills over the Colts at home, beat them 27-24. Game, the Colts played pretty well, but the game really wasn't as close as that score, in my opinion. It was clear that Buffalo was the better team, not by a lot. This is the playoffs. Colts are a good, well-coached team, but they didn't have enough to beat the Bills. In a surprise, you had the Rams over the Seattle Seahawks, who were fully healthy, 30-20 in Seattle, as a matter of fact, down to their second-string quarterback, which was their first-string quarterback, actually, for 2 weeks off of thumb surgery, but they found a way to beat them off of defense and the run game, 30-20. You had your creamsicle Buccaneers over the Washington football team, 31-23. Even though you crapped on them all season long, is back to creamsicle.
Wait. Let's step back on that. I didn't crap on them.
No.
I was cautiously optimistic.
So you peed on them. Got it. 31-23 was the score. It wasn't that close. They dominated. They closed the playbook in the second half. Dominant performance. And then on Sunday, you had the Ravens over the Titans in a revenge game from the playoffs last year, winning 20-13. More on that a little bit later. And you had the Saints 21-9 over the Bears. They didn't use the majority of their playbook. If they had any questions about Trubisky and the future of that offense, I think that game showed them that even though he played better down the stretch in the regular season, they don't have enough to match teams like the Saints, who have a much better quarterback, which is probably pretty much everyone who made the playoffs outside of Washington. Some teams would probably even take Alex Smith over him, but they won 21-9, setting up for some very, very interesting divisional round matchups next week. But then there was this, Jay. Sunday Night Football from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. You had the Browns against their heated division rival, Pittsburg Steelers. And the Browns, there aren't enough adjectives to describe how they had their way with the Steelers. It was embarrassing. Beat them 48-37, 28-0 in the first quarter. Big Ben, 3 interceptions in the first half. One of his worst performances, despite the fact that he threw 47 for 68, 501, 4 touchdowns, 4 picks total. It was all to get them back in the game. A terrible performance if that is to be his last. So, Jay, this being the story of the week, nobody saw this coming. A Browns team that hardly didn't practice all last week, didn't have their head coach due to COVID, and barely beat the Steelers, last week, even though Big Ben didn't play.
Yep. So everything 24-22, last game of the season.
Everything set up for them to play this game tough, but to take a first-round exit, but be glad that they're back in the playoffs and that Baker Mayfield appears to be, their franchise quarterback. But that wasn't good enough for them, clearly, Jay. They dominated this game. It was an embarrassment. All types of jokes, all types of trolling, you name it. So who is to blame for not only the Steelers losing, but losing the way that they did?
So, Jimmy, I joked about this on my solo when I talked about this game coming up, that even though the Browns did win the last game, they barely beat them without their starters playing. But it was going to be a better game than we would expect, mainly because the Steelers are still down all of their linebackers. I think they're into the 5th and 6th string set of linebackers, and that is the defensive anchor that they have. But in this game, I don't think it had anything to do with them.
No.
Nothing to do with them. This was 100% on the back of Ben Roethlisberger. I'm not even blaming Mike Tomlin for this. Tomlin can only do so much. Your center hikes the ball over your head on your first snap, and you give up a touchdown. Ben and Mike and James Conner look like the Atlanta Falcons looking at that ball and trying to decide what they should do. I think they thought they punted the ball and was waiting to touch it right there at the 1 yard line for the defense. Because neither one of them dove on the ball. It got kicked into the end zone, and then the Browns scored a touchdown off of it. It was pathetic. Next, we saw how washed Ben Roethlisberger was because he turned into Nathan Peterman. He turned into the Peterman and was just flinging interceptions over. And the first one, I'm not going to blame him too much on because it was a tip pass.
Okay.
The second one threw right to the defender. At least in my eyes, it felt like you. I'm open. You're open. You're open. Oh, shoot, wait a minute, wrong color. Wait, I thought we were wearing white today. Ooh, the terrible towels. But no, overall, all jokes aside, this was horrible. And me watching them go 28-0, Jimmy, they ended the first quarter 28-0. I got to commend the Browns as well for having such a powerful run game. Their run game is really what carried them in this one. But my God, the Steelers look bad. It's time to move on from Ben. Don't even waste your time. Tomlin can only prepare so much. It's the only reason why I'm giving him a small pass, because Ben just played awfully.
When you saw Ben at the end of the game on the bench by himself, near tears, and I believe he did do some crying with Marquise Pouncey, the center, his best friend, that's the kind of reaction that you have when you know this is the end, when you know that your career is going to end in such a way that's, in a sense, a disgrace to your legacy.
Right.
Being a two-time champ, throwing for all the yards and the touchdowns that he's had, being a true Steeler, what you would expect a Pittsburg Steeler quarterback to be, as tough as he is, to see your season and likely your career in that way is heartbreaking. It's hard to even get up off the bench to walk to the locker room, because you know that could very well be the last time you do. But I don't blame just Ben Roethlisberger for this. I ranked, okay, what are the top 3 reasons why this happened? Because this is the playoffs. This is the division rival that you know very well. So to lose like this, there have to be multiple reasons. To me, the top 3 first is, number 3, no run game. All year long, this was the problem. And it's almost as though they didn't do hardly anything about it. No, not bringing in anyone, no changing of the scheme. I mean, they probably did change the scheme some, but whatever it wasn't working. And that's one thing the Steelers always have, is a solid run game, no matter who it is back there. I mean,
they had 2 effective running backs in theory to start the year, and then all of a sudden they just forgot how to run through holes, or the holes just didn't exist. Because James Conner, he's fallen off the last 2 years. God bless the man. Right. I know he's a cancer survivor, and I was afraid for him with the COVID situation all season long. He's been atrocious, and I've drafted him 2 years in a row like an idiot. Go ahead and put my clown mask on right now for picking him every year, knowing he's going to be bad. Heck, picking any Steelers like I did. Juju Smith-Schuster is showing us that he is nothing without Antonio Brown.
I'll get to him.
I know you're going to get to him. He's going to be on your list. And Snell, Benny Snell, I don't get it. So what else should you have, Jimmy?
So no run game. Number 2, you're right, Ben Roethlisberger, 3 early interceptions. And you might recall, after he threw his first interception in our group chat, someone said something, I forgot what they said, but I said, no, we've seen this Ben Roethlisberger before. Because this was not Ben Roethlisberger. This was Ben Rivers. Because when he turns into Phillip Rivers, you can just tell if he throws a first quarter interception, it's going to be a long day for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So after that first one, I was like, oh boy. Like, they are in trouble. And he proceeded to throw 4 interceptions. So it's hard for anyone to win, albeit in the playoffs, especially when your quarterback is throwing that many interceptions. So he's a number 2 reason. Number 1 reason, and this speaks to a theme that I talked about on my last solo show, and that's Juju Smith-Schuster, in the sense that in the playoffs, words matter much more than in the regular season. It's all about details. It's all about not giving your opponent just that little extra bit of motivation to go out and lay everything on the line for that game and for their team. And that's exactly what he did by saying that they're the same old Browns, that, we've played this team before, that they have a couple of pretty good players.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous because, for a number of reasons, but that's exactly what they needed. It's almost as though despite his youth, he should have been smart enough to know not to do that, not to say that, at least until after the game. I don't get it. Like, the stuff that Dabo said about Ohio State, or the stuff that, who else was it that I railed on? The Florida football players when they were talking about OU. Say all that stuff after you've won, after you've dominated the game. Don't say that before.
Don't give bulletin board material, and it seems
Why is that so hard? Why is that so hard?
Egos. People love to talk and love to hear themselves talk, and they love to talk down on their opponents. Mm-hmm. I had 2 additional observations from this game. First off, if I'm correct, the Steelers did not get a sack in this game, did they?
I know it was late into the second half. I'm not sure. I can check for you.
Yeah. Verify that for me real quick. Okay. But if I'm correct, the Steelers didn't get us. I know they were talking about throughout the first half how they had a streak of sacks in a row, games in a row with sacks, and that today and I think that's a regular season stat. But in the playoffs, they had gone like 2 games in a row without getting a sack. And then this one, of course, we add to the list of things. It doesn't appear that they even got a sack in this game. They did not sack Baker Mayfield this game at all. So they got 0 sacks in this game. They turn into a whole different team in the playoffs the last few years. Mm-hmm. Now, that I can probably blame Mike Tomlin because he is the common denominator. Even though last year he didn't have Ben Roethlisberger, he had Mason Rudolph. Did they make the playoffs last year? They didn't make the playoffs last year. So that's one they have to worry about. But 2 years before that, they did have Ben Roethlisberger, and they're not performing defensively like we know the Steelers to perform. Mm-hmm. And secondly, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of was hoping that the Browns would give up the booty and lose this game.
Why?
because it's the same old Browns, and they were slowly going there because I think. Yeah, they were slowly on the trek of doing that because the score went down to like 23-35 at one point. Mm-hmm. And when I saw that, I was like, they're going to let them come back. They're going to make this is going to be the great. And Tim in our group text said that no, the number one topic is going to be the greatest comeback in NFL playoff history. And he was close because it was 35-10 and then it went up to 35-23 and then all of a sudden the Steelers forgot how to make things happen. Mainly Roethlisberger just could not complete passes or make it go. But if their defense would have stuck and they would have kept playing, man, that would have been so intriguing seeing them as, you know.